everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Clarice, one of the organizers of Next Hack, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Our special guest today is Daphne Ng, co-founder and CEO of Dedoco, a first of its kind document and workflow management platform that focuses on protecting data privacy and document security for companies, leveraging on blockchain technology. Daphne spent a major part of her career in corporate banking, then moved on to founding her own first blockchain startup. Today, she's joined by Damien Korb, partner and NCS Snakes products and platforms, and also co-founder and CTO of Envolve Data, a retail intelligence platform. Let's listen in as the both of them chat about their journey from corporate to entrepreneur. Damien, over to you.
Thank you, Clarice, and thanks everyone for joining. Daphne, it's great to have you in this dialogue today that we're going to have. So Clarice actually alluded already on your interesting career choices, right? And maybe if you don't mind sharing a little bit on your life pre-startup as a starting point, and then what made you make this big jump?
Yeah, thanks, Damien. Very nice to see you again. And first of all, thank you very much to Damien and his team and NCS Next platform for inviting me to kick off this series. Very happy to be here. So a little bit about myself. Born and bred in Singapore, graduated from NUS Business School, as many of you would have guessed. So a generalist, not so much of a master of something. But pretty interesting journey. After graduation, helped a bit in my family business, which was in hospitality and tourism. Also founded a retail venture when I was much younger. Didn't do very well in that. And then went on to focus on corporate banking for at least 8 years. Specializing in trade finance, commodities and structured trade across international banks. And then in 2018, after I left the bank, founded our first blockchain startup, which was more for services and software development. And then went on to productize and set up Dedoco in 2020. So a bit of that journey.
Why?
Why Dedoco?
Yes, and why leaving a more, I guess, cozy and comfortable corporate job to go into this adventure?
Yeah, so before the foray into banking, right? And I was like mentioning a bit about, so not many people know about this, but I was talking a bit about this retail venture that I had, right? Because like every young girl's dream was to actually have a retail venture of some sorts. I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad that I didn't do so well in it, so that I won't actually try to do it again in Singapore, because unless you're digital, it's really, really hard if it's just a brick and mortar business. So I thought that, I would never be an entrepreneur. So I decided to listen to my mother and make some good use of my degree. And what vertical should I look at, right, with my degree in Singapore, that I can make money? So I decided to go into banking. That was how it started. But interesting part of it has always been corporate banking, and it was a concerted effort because I enjoy the B2B space. I enjoy working with corporates. I enjoy helping them in terms of structuring their trade lines, helping them with their business in terms of giving them working capital and credit lines. So I really enjoy that. And so if you look at a bit at the progression, now I'm also still doing B2B and corporate. Left the bank, in all honesty, I wish I had a more glamorous reason. I decided that I would want to try something digital. It's as simple as that. At that time, I think that was about 2016 or 2017. Then Singapore, we had our first or second year of Fintech festival, and there was a lot of hype around co-working space, Fintech and new technologies. And I decided that, okay, that is the future and I want to be a part of it. So I quit my job, not knowing where and what I want to do. So that's another story for another day. And and with my co-founder, which was also an important part of the journey, right? So my co-founder, Dr. Ernie Teo, he's a blockchain researcher, but he's also my good friend for 20 years. And so one day he realized from like my group that, oh, Daphne quit her job, and I don't know whether he took pity on me or what, but he messaged me and he asked me, hey, I heard that, you left banking, do you want to do something together? We have some ideas around it. Yeah, so we had our first startup, and we realized from the first startup, which is before Dedoco, that a lot of the projects that were requested from us by enterprises were all dealing with either validating a record or authenticating a transaction or confirming documents, right? The medium of exchange was always a document, leveraging on that technology. And I realized that, there was an opportunity for us to productize it and to provide a better value proposition to large enterprises. And for Dedoco itself, in a nutshell, what we really are focusing on is the idea of document residency and data residency. So that is really how it started, and in terms of why blockchain was on DNA.
Excellent. And maybe you want to explain a bit to the audience what Dedoco then is about in terms of the product and where you guys are at in terms of size, in terms of market validation, what you guys been doing for the past 2 years.
Yeah, so Dedoco was set up in March 2020, and in a very dramatic fashion, right? After we incorporated on 15th of March, and then we went to immediate lockdown. So Dedoco, we actually stand for Decentralized Document Connector. The vision is that for us to be a next generation digital document infrastructure engine. So what do we mean by that? So we have a suite of product lines that helps companies to manage their document workflows, manage their records, and manage their transactions, and in a way that provides them the ability to protect their documents that complies with local data laws, but at the same time also ensuring that the documents are secure and are not tampered with, especially for sensitive and confidential documents or for key sectors that require compliance because of regulations. We are about 50 staff strength regionally, Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, Thailand, and pretty busy. Also having a couple of engineers, an offshore team in Vietnam, and then the core R&D team in Singapore.
Great. And do you sell globally already, or is it mainly across Asia?
So in terms of our direct sales and channel partners, we launched in Asia first. And right now we also have accelerated a lot of our big tech partnerships. So example, with some of the US big tech partners who are integrating our suite of document workflows to their existing product lines.
Okay, excellent. And so maybe a little bit about the shift, and because you mentioned your background is business, right? And it's pretty heavy tech you're getting into. So how do you approach actually this kind of technology opportunity, and how much of an understanding do you think you need to have to really be able to drive the business and be the face of a company that is seen as a pretty as a deep tech company?
Yeah, I think as a founder and CEO, it's the expectation would be at least 200% kind of knowledge. First and foremost, you can't be really like kind of a backward or laggard in digitalization kind of products. You need to be very digital in the first place. You need to be also adequately and reasonably technical, because the things that we are selling are not e-commerce products. So we are selling ICT software solutions. There is a pre-sales approach. There is a consulting approach. And just to kind of answer your question succinctly, whether I can do it or not, the short answer is yes, because that is expected. And how I did it, I guess it's actually a lot from the on-the-job kind of learning and experience, and also being very involved in the product development as well as the engineering development with my team as well. So that gives me a lot of perspectives in terms of the implementation requirements, the kind of questions that customers will ask. And of course, when we go into the deep dive of the technical architecture and infrastructure, we do actually have our own team members to actually, to liaise, with the team from the customer or the partner side. But yeah, I think it's imperative that we understand the technology, because my main job is to sell to customers and partners. Yeah, correct.
And blockchain is still, I mean, it's not new, but it's nascent in terms to be able to create, I guess, a real business and viable business at scale on using this kind of technology. So maybe can you share maybe a few of your thoughts about the potential, where we at in that kind of maturity curve? What do you see for blockchain tomorrow? And do you see that kind of exploding? Do you see that still like a bit of a kind of a steady growth? What are your thoughts on the adoption in general?
Yeah, so I won't talk too much about like the metaverse or the NFT space, because I think there are a lot.
Damn it. Okay, fine. I won't trick you with this.
Yeah, I think there's you can Google a lot of those. There's a lot of activities happening around there.
Yeah.
At least for the space that we are in, might be quite similar to NCS as well, wanting to be like forward-looking in terms of emerging technologies. Our target segments are still very much the B2B customers, the large customers, including public sector clients, BFSI clients. So from the technology perspective, my opinion is, how do we actually leverage the key benefits of the technology, in a way that, makes sense, that can be adopted right now by our companies and enterprises. My opinion is that I view blockchain technology as having the potential to be evergreen from that perspective, not just from like the crypto sector kind of activities that we are always hearing about, but from the point of view that with the cryptography, with the smart contract applications, are we able to tackle certain problem statements more elegantly than maybe existing or more traditional technologies that we are used to? So for example, right, like for us, in order for us to help our companies comply with the resurgence of the idea of, having in-country data residency compliance, how are we able to leverage on a decentralized architecture to ensure that customers always have full control? I mean, our users always have full control of their documents within their own servers, for example, right? So I think the exploration and application of technology is really, really interesting, and could be quite expensive, and expensive as in quite wide in terms of applying across verticals.
And do you see then do you have to spend a lot of time to educate the customers on the potential of the technology, or they really get it, they already understand it, but they struggle more about fitting maybe your product or your offering into it? I guess, how much resistance or awareness do you meet when you pitch the solution to your customers?
Yeah, so I would say that the onus and the responsibility is on like the solution providers like us to articulate in a way that makes sense for the customers, so that they know that it is a priority that they can prioritize in terms of adopting it. So what do I mean by that, right? Nobody can really adopt just like the back-end technology, because it's just a database. What they would really want to adopt is the applications that's built on it. And in terms of the user experience, in terms of, at least for our case, the workflows, right? So example, we have like document e-signing, which is easily understandable. We have video signing, which is an extension of our document sign, forms as a service, VCerts, identity, and so on, right? But at the back end, the engine, what we're trying to say is that the engine provides the avenue for all these applications to be able to build trust in the records, giving them an alternative way in viewing security and giving them the option of complying with data laws. So then with that, right, it's not too difficult for enterprises to understand why they should actually consider our solution rather than just saying that we are Web3. Actually has no sense and no meaning.
Right. So you're driving the conversation into solving the problem, not about how wonderful your technical solution is, because they don't really care in a way, as long as you can solve their problem properly. Is it what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would say that based on our experience, there are two groups of segments of people that we sell to. One is really what are we helping them solve and what are our ready solutions, platforms and APIs that they can actually already integrate and adopt. The other segment, I would say for the larger companies where they have innovation teams, then they would actually appreciate the R&D aspects a bit more. And then that would be a different conversation. Yeah.
So because they're trying to explore a new way of doing things and a new technology as well. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
And so there are actually questions in the Q&A. I'm going to stop to kind of pick some of those. So please keep them coming. I will address them as we go. So there's a question about, I guess, what was your first MVP? And I think that comes down to an interesting question. If you look back at how you started, even 2 years ago, and where you're at now, your idea of what the product would be, and what you've built so far and where you see it evolved, has it dramatically changed? And where you started, between where you started and where you're at now?
Yeah, so when we first entered the market in 2020, 2021, right, everyone thought that we were, the APAC answer to e-signing. Everyone thought that we were just a signing solution. I would say that was also a strategy that I used initially for two main reasons. One is, remember I mentioned that we went into a COVID lockdown when we first started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at that time, there was this acceleration of digital tools and having cross-border documents signed off, and because we couldn't leave our house and we still need to sign documents. So there's this acceleration of demand for e-signing. That's one. Second thing is that it was also the easiest application, at least for us to actually develop, that was very understandable to our consumers. So that's why the first few projects were really relating to document signing.
Right.
But having said that, right, that was always and has been part of our strategy, because it allows us to have an entry point in terms of conversations and in terms of the document workflow that we wanted to focus on. So what we did was progressively to build a suite of products that could actually complement that, and to also increase the depth of the development. And the next phase that we are working on, which we'll be launching, I think, next month, is actually our brand refresh and our platform refresh as well.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So there are still, again, the questions a bit, I think, of how things got started. So there was a question on the MVP and the focus, and there are questions about how did you close your first customer, right? And I remind the audience, the context is full lockdown. So starting a sales cycles, B2B sales cycles, where you can't face your customers, you can get meetings, you need to really, I guess, leverage your network. We want to hear all about it, but how did you close your first deal? How much time it took? How you went about it?
Yeah, so quite interesting, right, your question. So I remember that it was only me and Ernie, and then he had maybe one and two more engineers, maybe one more engineer, 2 engineers, right? So everyone was busy designing the platform in 2020, in March, April, May 2020, designing the platform. And I was the only business person, right? And my only job was to make sure that, okay, I need to do something and I better start selling, because so that concurrently when the platform is ready, then just in time, right, we have customers, right? So how did I go about it? Because I could not travel. So the good thing about B2B, and maybe the reason of my being always in the B2B space, even from the banking days, is it's all about trust and relationships. And it's all about connections, right? So it was great for me because I could pick up the phone and I could make many calls to get us our first deals while we were still developing the platform. And that was really very much how I actually closed the deals through remotely, getting partnerships on board while we're still developing the platform as well. First few deals, definitely, I think there was some periods where we could actually go out and meet some customers. I can't remember, there was some transition period where we were allowed to meet customers and things like that. Like a startup, right? When you had little to nothing, a lot is predicated on a few things. One is your credibility in the space, because I was able to like get a few connections to really refer me in, to give me the opportunity to pitch. And once the door is open, then a lot is predicated on my own effort, right? In terms of selling the vision and selling the benefits of the platform. And then with that, the most important is execution and delivery, right? So we started with like the one champion gave us 2 champions, two champions gave us 4 champions, 4 champions gave us 8 champions. So that was how we grew initially, because for the last 24 months, I must say, we did it with little to no marketing. And it was really sales, word of mouth, referrals.
Excellent. And so we'll maybe move into a bit more personal question somehow, if you don't mind. That's really, I think the audience is trying to understand, I guess, a bit of the personal journey and understanding, like, at some point, you know, when you're building a business, it's tough and you have this vision, but sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work. So have you been through this, or can you share how much you've been through these highs and lows that startup life usually brings, right? Which is, it's great, I'm going to be the king of the world, and at the end it's like, it's never going to work, I should give up. Can you describe a bit like this kind of ups and downs for the audience?
Yep. Ups and downs, like I think I have a lot of ups and downs. I guess I have never, okay, like thinking that this will not work, not really like my thought process. The more down moments are the ones where, for example, because I'm someone that likes to win, and I'm a very sales driven person. So when I lose deals, I will be very frustrated about it, right? To me, that is a down, because I need to win every deal, because you know, I try my best in every deal and every partnership that we want to onboard. That's one. And because we are a startup, then that makes the effort like 10 times or 100 times harder, because we are fighting against like Goliaths. And what we did, at least what I did initially, was really to target a very strong group of, I would say, shareholders that we wanted to onboard, to give us that credibility. And one of them being Vertex Ventures, who seeded us in 2021, which was last year. And the downs and the highs and low, I mean, the ups and downs were things like, even like from the fundraising perspective, right? So when we had our first seed round led by a VC, which is Vertex, I went through few months of due diligence, because we were very young. Okay, imagine we are just a little over 2 years now, so we were only over a year old when I approached Vertex. There would be a lot of I would say mental strength involved, because there is nothing wrong with the questions they ask, because that's part of duty. But if you take it too hard and start doubting in your vision, and I think Damien, you would understand what I mean. It would be, you will feel very low. I mean, I do have my low moments at that point in time, and then the highs would be like, then I managed to secure it, and then you forget all the low moments already.
Exactly. Excellent. And so maybe a bit on that note around, I guess, fundraising, but more generally, you being the face of the company, and I understand actually you're driving actually, I think 100% of the fundraising effort yourself. How do you see, I guess, as a woman in tech raising funds for a company that, again, in an environment that is very male dominated, actually VC and tech, both sides, unfortunately. Do you see that as a plus, as a disadvantage somehow? How have you lived through this experience?
Yeah. So I always I think one aspect of me is I do think that I embody both the male spirit and female spirit in whatever I do. I think I have elements of both of that. There's a joke that I used to always say. I was speaking on stage like I think last year or something, and they asked me something similar to that, like a woman in tech thing, right? And the joke actually I'm not sure, it's not really a joke, but it's meant as a joke as well, which is like I always joke that people only take me seriously when they hear me speaking. Unconscious bias. Yeah. I mean, unconscious bias in terms of how I look or whatever. I don't care. I don't really care what people think. But that was a joke that I mentioned, and that got a lot of laughter. But it's true, right? Because I think unconscious bias exists everywhere, and we can't stop that. I don't really know what people think when they see me or what they say about me. The only thing I know is that people who have interacted with me, know how I work and know that I'm very business driven, and I'm quite tough. So I think that has been, unless I hear some new things about me, I'll let you know. I'm not sure yet.
No, that's great to hear, and I think very inspiring. And so maybe if you reflect back a bit, and if you were looking at your young self, or I guess like a number of girls studying right now, young girls studying tech, and trying to understand what's the potential for them, what would you like to tell them? What do they need to be ready for? What are the things they need to be prepared for to be successful in this environment, you think?
I think there needs to be a innate interest in digital. Why I say digital, because it's not just like tech or deep tech. It's not just about coding, and it's not just about analytics. You need to have an innate interest and understanding about digital and technology, because that will actually kind of open your mind and your reading interest in terms of researching and understanding it. That's one. Prepared to do the hard work. That means be prepared to be on the ground, whether is it in the product development point of view, engineering point of view, or from the sales point of view, right? So although we are although Dedoco, we deal with like what we call emerging tech, right? But if you look at the way that we are selling and the customers that we onboard, we do need to have very strong ICT kind of experience. And if you don't have that, you must be willing to pick it up. Whether is it pick it up yourself because you're doing it yourself, or you can have mentors and you hire the right people to do it. I would say that that is the narrower aspect, and that is the baseline aspect that I think everyone should have if you want to go into technology. The other aspects is the role, right? What kind of role do you want to undertake within this sector? Do you want to do like the innovation role, the R&D role, the sales role? And then that would actually encompass different skill sets like any other sector. Just that your baseline foundation and knowledge needs to be reasonably adequate, I would say. Yeah.
Excellent. And so back to maybe a bit of the fundraising. There are some questions around that. What do you think? I guess maybe one is, how has your pitch evolved? What you have seen worked and not work? And do you think you have it now and you kind of able to kind of, hit the nail on the head right away at the first meeting?
Yeah, so I promised Damien that I'm going to be as candid as possible for this sharing. It's funny, right? Like so I came from a banking background, very comfortable. Everything is prepared for you. Even your presentations are prepared for you, right? And then you go and do your first startup, and then you learn, you fail, and you get up. And I even in my first startup, I even had this mental block that I am not good in fundraising, that I will never be able to fundraise. It was a mental block that I had for quite a long time. All the investor pitches are all done by myself. I can say that how it evolved, I mean, based on that question, how it evolved, I think it's quite crappy. If I look back at all my previous investor pitches, it was very crappy. And now I evolved to the extent that founders of new startups actually sometimes ask me, how should they do their pitch decks? And I have a standard like 15 categories that I will WhatsApp them. I said, okay, from number 1 to number 15 categories, just put it in a PowerPoint and fill it up. At least that will be the flow to start with. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in that. I would say that different strokes for different audience. You will actually be super interesting to some, or you'll be like super put in a category that you will never make it to some. So so you never know. Most importantly for fundraising, I think, is you need to have you need to be in the right mindset. And what do I mean by that? You need to have very strong belief, product belief, and self-belief when you're fundraising. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect the other person to believe you, right? That's one. And second thing is that you need to be super focused when you are doing fundraising, because if you are very distracted by a lot of the other ongoings in the office, sometimes it makes it even more difficult to fundraise. I say that because as startup founders, if it's not just doing a fundraising role, like example, like in a corporate setting, right? I have to do everything myself, then it gets a bit more tedious, because you need to kind of balance your mindset and your frame of mind when you're doing the investor pitching versus when you are running the business.
Excellent. Excellent. And so maybe on the kind of the team and people side of things, as you recruit people, what's the pitch to them on the company, the vision, but also, well, you're joining a startup, so things may get a bit bumpy along the road. So what's the message to the team joining you to kind of balance inspiration, but realism, I guess, of what the journey may look like?
Yeah. So the only interviews I do now are really for like the senior level roles, or the one that are like a direct report to me, right? And I would say we're pretty lucky. We do have quite a good interest of people wanting to join us, because I think like, the startup space, the blockchain space, and then being with a young, energetic team, kind of draw candidates nowadays.
That's good. That's good.
So my job is for the really the talents that we want to pursue. My job is to inspire them. So really sharing about the vision of the company, sharing about the culture, which is very important. That means the culture and the style, the values that we embody. Like for Dedoco, we have 3 values. Values is performance, the value of learning, and the value of caring, right? Performance, that is non-negotiable, whatever role that you're taking in. Learning, having a humility side of it, that we may not know everything, so there will be a lot of learnings that we will learn from each other and along the way. and also encourage them to do a lot of upgrading as well. So we sponsor a lot of upgrading, whatever courses that they want. And the funny thing is that when you say that and then nobody has time to go for it.
But it's a good intent. The intent is good. The intent is good.
And then the caring part is more like the culture that we want. So my team is really quite close-knitted and strong, especially with my leaders, because me and my leaders, because they know that I always have their back, right? You can have the nastiest, not nasty, but you can have the nastiest situation or circumstance.
Yes.
And I'm there. So I'm there to even clear the shit with them. And be there for them. So I think values is important. And then really showing them how their role would really impact and contribute, and how they would also benefit with upside in terms of stock options, right? Because that's the reason why they want to join a startup, right? They want to have the upside if they're going to leave their corporate job.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, I always throw in something that I to remind them that they is the reason of why they may want to join a startup is because they want to have connections, and they want to have a flavor in case they want to set up their own venture next time, which I always encourage.
Right.
So that's really my pitch when I want to.
So I remember when I was recruiting some team members as well, I remember spending a bit of time on trying to sell the dream, but also finding ways to discourage them almost, because you want to test, because to your point about the upside, yes, there is an upside, but there's a huge downside as well, because things may just not work out, and they need to be ready to actually go through, these times. And if their personal situation doesn't allow it, it could create a bit of a conflict and a challenge for the team members. So that was kind of the sense of my question, and I can see you're really trying to definitely inspire them to join, and I think selling it, to your point, is probably the easy part, and making sure you get the right attitude and the right expectation is an important part as well.
Yeah. So while there's an inspiring aspect for the ones that I think are strong, but I just want to make sure that they know what they're getting into. Then to your point, I always give them like maybe 10 reasons why they shouldn't join me.
So you're doing that too.
Yes, and I do it very candidly. So for some of the senior hires, they will also even speak to at least 3 to 5 team members across departments, and I do not like stage it, like everyone just share everything.
Yeah, that's good.
So they know what they're getting into.
Excellent. Great. I'm still looking at some of the questions that have been posted here to see if there's a bit more coming up. Sorry, and just give me a second.
Are there a lot of questions?
Yeah, there were actually quite a few. I was trying to kind of group them as we were going. So maybe a bit on the again a bit of becoming an entrepreneur. So I've asked you about specifically, I guess, a woman in tech and what you would tell. But now, I guess if you take the bigger picture and looking back at the past few years, would you tell people working in a corporate context, would you just say, yeah, of course, just jump and start your own thing, and it's going to be really cool and enjoy the ride? What would you want to tell them? Again, the pros and the cons of being in the wild, I guess, right? A bit more in the wild compared to the corporate world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not in our position to tell them not to. But I guess the most important point that they need to know is capital. I know it sounds very pragmatic, but I think capital is super important.
Of course.
And your first few months or your first startup may not be the final version of the product that was making money. It could be like the next iteration that would make the money. And in this digital age, especially if you are running a technology company or any digital company, right? The window of opportunity to scale becomes narrower. So then the speed to market and having the right product market fit for scale, it makes it even like exponentially more important. So capital is actually really important. And then I would say people. You will need to really understand whether you have the skill set for the first 12 months, and then the kind of skill sets you need in the next 12 to 24, and then the different life cycle of the company. And then you realize as well that as the company grow, your existing staff may not grow together with you. So what do you do with them, right? I mean, how do you help them to get up to that speed? Or do you decide that they need to do something else? And then who else do you invite to be part of that journey? So the life cycle of the company and the stages will actually determine the different kinds of people that you hire along the way. Because, for example, if you just start out, right, no rock star will want to join you because that you have nothing. So you kind of need to stage it. And manage it along the way. So capital, people. Third, I would say that will be the last one. The more important one will be champions. It's so important that you have like champions who believe in you, not just believe in you, but don't blindly kind of believe in you. They will also be the ones like telling you that you're going wrong direction, whether it's shareholders, advisors or mentors, or your champions, right? Like in a room full of people, your champions are the one that are always talking about you or helping you sell your product. With that, that makes your startup journey less lonely, because at least there are some people together with
people
you
who can help you. Excellent. So you obviously have a pretty busy life. Do you have time to do other things outside work?
Yeah, I think I know I look like I'm a workaholic. Okay, I'm a workaholic. But I think time is what you make out of it, right? I think not recently, but I've been in a better state of mind in terms of like my mental alertness and strength. When I realized this year that it is very important to actually keep my mind free of operational and admin kind of issues. I mean, I do solve them, but having the right team members, as I mentioned, at different stages is super important. And now I'm very much focused on looking at the big picture. How do I grow new markets? How do I grow the valuation of the company? And now focusing on our next race as well. Yeah.
So what do you do to clear your head?
What do I do to clear my head? I read a lot. Yeah, I read a lot.
Business books, fiction books?
Actually, I read all genres. Okay, that's reading. I also watch a lot of those. Don't laugh at me, but I watch a lot of those like Oprah Winfrey kind of.
Nobody's judging. We're not judging. No worries.
Videos, because I find it very uplifting. And I can do brainless stuff like watch Netflix as well. So I watch a lot of Netflix.
See, that's good. That's good.
So it's really
so you're a normal person after all.
I'm very normal. I'm very normal.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Daphne. I think we're coming close to the end. We had a lot of comments, a lot of participants. I've seen more than 170 connected earlier. So thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for sharing so candidly, I guess, your experience. I think it's been really interesting and really inspiring to all of us. So thank you very much for contributing to our next hack. And I will hand it over back to Clarice to actually explain a bit more about the challenge and introduce the next steps. But again, thank you very much, Daphne. It was great talking with you. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Damien and Daphne, for the insightful sharing. Now for a recap of our challenge, which was launched last Friday. So we have two categories this year. Entrepreneur, which is open to any of the full-time employees of NCS Group and affiliate companies, and Entrepreneur, which is open to the startup community around APAC. Submissions will close on 28th of October, and in the 7 weeks that's leading up to the submission deadline, we are organizing a series of talks and webinars specially curated for you guys. So if you liked what you saw today, for the next 3 weeks, we have lined up more industry experts to provide inspiration and insights on topics relating to our challenge teams of sustainability, metaverse for business, and hyper-automation. So you can look forward to a diverse group of speakers from startup founders to head honchos of companies like Meta, Singtel, UOB, Valore, Temasek, and many more. And the speaker information will be released soon through the platform and our partners. So scan the QR code that you see here right now to register for the event. And with that, we've now come to the end of our event. We hope that you've enjoyed your time with us today. And on behalf of the Next Hack organizing committee, I'd like to thank everyone for spending their Friday afternoon with us. And should you have any questions related to the challenge during this period, feel free to contact Anne, Deepak, or myself. Thank you.